In 1941, Henry Ford stood before a crowd of reporters in Dearborn, Michigan, and swung an axe with all his might into the trunk of a custom-built automobile. The axe simply bounced off. There was no dent, no scratched metal, no shattered fiberglass. The exterior of the car was manufactured from a composite matrix of natural plant fibers, a material Ford claimed was 10 times stronger than steel and entirely grown from the earth. He envisioned a future where American industry would be completely decoupled from the extraction of finite, toxic resources. His prototype was not only built from this crop, but it was also designed to run on the very ethanol produced from its harvest. It was a completely self-sustaining, closed-loop industrial vision, but that future was quietly, systematically dismantled. Today, that exact plant material is not recognized as a miracle of modern engineering. It is recognized by the federal government as a heavily regulated threat to the state. The global synthetic fiber market is currently valued at over $160 billion. The global pulp and paper industry is valued at roughly $350 billion. Both of these massive economic engines rely entirely on a system of artificial scarcity and immense environmental degradation. We clear-cut centuries-old forests and process the wood with highly toxic sulfites to make paper. We extract millions of barrels of crude oil from the earth to spin into nylon, polyester, and Kevlar, synthetic materials that will sit in landfills for a millennia, slowly breaking down into microplastics that poison our bloodstreams. Yet nature perfected a vastly superior alternative roughly 10,000 years ago. It is a crop that matures in 120 days, requires 0 toxic pesticides, dramatically improves the soil it grows in, and produces a fiber with a higher tensile strength than the most advanced synthetic plastics on the market. We are talking about industrial hemp. The erasure of hemp from our daily lives is a purely modern fiction. For the vast majority of human civilization, this plant was the undisputed backbone of global industry. In the year 8000 BCE, ancient civilizations in present-day Taiwan were already utilizing the stalks to weave textiles. By the era of the Han Dynasty, the Chinese had weaponized it, utilizing the unyielding strength of hemp fiber for their bowstrings, granting them a distinct tactical advantage over their enemies. They pounded it into the first forms of paper, recording human history on a material that refused to decay. But the absolute dominance of this plant became terrifyingly apparent during the age of global exploration. The British Royal Navy, the most formidable military apparatus the world had ever seen, was entirely dependent on cannabis sativa. A single British ship of the line required roughly 80 tons of hemp just to set sail. The ropes, the rigging, the massive anchor cables, and the sails were all woven from it. The fiber was impervious to the corrosive rot of salt water. It was so fundamental to maritime supremacy that the very word canvas is historically derived from the Latin word cannabis. To control the global hemp supply was to control the oceans. To control the oceans was to rule the world. In the early American colonies, it was not merely an option to grow this crop. It was a legal mandate. In 1619, the Virginia Assembly passed legislation requiring every farmer to cultivate it. You could legally pay your taxes with it. The Magna Carta, the Gutenberg Bible, and the first drafts of the United States Declaration of Independence were all written on paper derived from it. Modern wood pulp paper acidifies, turns yellow, and disintegrates within a few generations. Hemp paper is essentially immortal. For hundreds of years, it was considered a patriotic duty to cultivate the plant. It was a strategic military resource fundamentally inseparable from the survival and expansion of empires. To understand why it was universally revered, you must look past the modern political stigma and examine the cold, biological machinery of the plant itself. Hemp is not an ordinary agricultural output. It is a botanical titan. The secret lies in the anatomy of its stem, specifically the bast fibers. These are long, continuous strands that run the entire length of the plant's stalk, designed by millions of years of evolution to withstand high winds and severe weather. The tensile strength of a bast fiber rivals that of modern carbon composites. Consider the sheer absurdity of modern paper production. A tree takes 20 to 50 years to mature. More critically, wood is primarily composed of lignin, a rigid, natural polymer that acts as a glue, and only contains about 30% cellulose, the actual organic compound needed to manufacture paper. To turn a mature tree into a sheet of paper, you must violently break down that lignin using a heavy, chemically intensive process involving caustic acids and bleaches. It is inefficient, highly toxic, and devastating to local ecosystems. Hemp, on the other hand, consists of up to 85% pure cellulose. It contains only a fraction of the lignin found in trees. It yields 4 times as much paper per acre as a standard forest, and it does so every 4 months rather than every 4 decades. But the plant's true miracle is not just what it yields. it is what it leaves behind. Most modern cash crops, like cotton or corn, violently strip the earth of its nutrients. They require heavy irrigation and synthetic fertilizers, eventually turning fertile topsoil into dead dirt. Hemp does the exact opposite. Its deep taproot system penetrates violently into the earth, breaking up soil compaction, aerating the ground, and preventing massive erosion. Furthermore, it possesses an extraordinary biological trait known as phytoremediation. The plant acts as a massive botanical sponge, pulling heavy metals, toxins, and pollutants directly out of the ground. In 1998, a team of researchers from an environmental firm called Phytotech traveled to Pripyat, Ukraine, the site of the catastrophic Chernobyl nuclear disaster. They planted industrial hemp in the highly irradiated, devastated soil surrounding the reactor. The results were staggering. The hemp plants rapidly absorbed radioactive isotopes, including strontium-90 and cesium-137, directly from the earth, storing the radiation in their stalks and leaving the soil noticeably cleaner. The plants were literally cleansing the atomic fallout from the dirt. It is a crop capable of repairing the very environment it grows in. It thrives in bad soil, leaving the earth far richer than it found it. If this plant is an agricultural panacea, an industrial powerhouse, and an ecological savior, why is it virtually absent from the modern American landscape? Why was it aggressively hunted to the brink of domestic extinction? The answer, as it always is in the history of American industry, is a matter of market share. In the early 1930s, a technological breakthrough threatened to permanently upend the global economy. For centuries, harvesting the mighty bast fibers of the hemp plant required intense manual labor. The stalks had to be retted, dried, and processed by hand, making mass production an expensive endeavor. But the invention of the mechanical decorticator changed everything. This machine could automatically strip the fiber from the stalk at an unprecedented scale, removing the labor bottleneck. Suddenly, hemp was poised to become the cheapest, most abundant, and most durable resource on the planet. Popular Mechanics magazine ran a massive feature, officially dubbing it the new billion-dollar crop. This impending agricultural revolution triggered sheer panic within the boardrooms of the most powerful corporations in America. At the exact moment the decorticator was poised to flood the market with cheap, superior cellulose, two massive industrial empires were finalizing their own blueprints for the future, and both required the complete elimination of natural competition. First was the chemical giant DuPont. In the late 1930s, Lamont DuPont patented a revolutionary new synthetic fiber derived from fossil fuels. He called it nylon. Simultaneously, DuPont had patented a highly profitable chemical-heavy sulfite process for breaking down wood pulp to manufacture paper. Both of these patents represented the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar synthetic empire. Hemp was a direct, existential threat to the adoption of both nylon and wood pulp paper. Second was William Randolph Hearst, the ruthless newspaper magnate. Hearst had invested heavily in millions of acres of prime timberland across the Pacific Northwest to feed his massive paper mills. If hemp became the standard for paper production, Hearst's vast timber empire would be rendered financially worthless overnight. Goliath did not want to compete with David. The natural resource was too efficient, too cheap, and too deeply ingrained in agricultural history. So Goliath decided to rewrite the law. To eliminate the threat, these industrial titans required a political executioner. They found one in Harry J. Anslinger, the first commissioner of the newly established Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Anslinger was an ambitious bureaucrat looking to aggressively expand the budget and federal authority of his relatively weak, newly minted department. The nepotistic web connecting these men was glaring. Anslinger was appointed to his position by Andrew Mellon, the Secretary of the Treasury. Andrew Mellon was not only Anslinger's uncle-in-law, but he was also the head of Mellon Bank, the very financial institution that provided the primary financial backing for DuPont's massive petrochemical expansion. Together, this trinity of chemical, timber, and federal interests orchestrated a masterpiece of legislative deception. They knew they could not simply ban hemp. Hemp was an American staple, universally recognized by farmers and industrialists alike as an essential, harmless commodity. So they changed the name. Hearst utilized the immense, unchecked power of his newspaper syndicate to popularize a relatively obscure Mexican-Spanish slang term, marijuana. Hearst's papers began running highly sensationalized, racially charged headlines blaming this new foreign drug for a wave of horrific violence, murder, and insanity across the nation. They painted a terrifying portrait of a psychoactive menace infiltrating American communities from across the southern border. The American public was completely unaware that the dangerous foreign marijuana they were reading about in the Sunday papers was actually the exact same species of plant growing safely in their local farmers' hemp fields. Industrial hemp does contain trace amounts of tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, the psychoactive compound found in its medicinal cousin. However, the levels in true industrial hemp are so infinitesimally low, typically less than 0.3%, that it is biologically impossible to experience any psychoactive effect from it whatsoever. You could set fire to an entire acre of industrial hemp, stand in the smoke, and walk away with nothing but a headache. But the science was never the point. The confusion was the point. In the late summer of 1937, Anslinger brought the Marijuana Tax Act before Congress. The hearings were brief, hurried, and almost entirely devoid of actual scientific testimony. When Dr. William C. Woodward, the legislative counsel for the American Medical Association, arrived to testify, he was appalled by the proceedings. He aggressively informed the committee that the medical community had no idea what this marijuana was, because it was simply cannabis, a widely used botanical medicine and industrial staple that had never caused the sensationalized violence printed in Hearst's newspapers. Dr. Woodward stated on the congressional record that the legislation was inherently deceptive and medically unnecessary. Congress ignored him entirely. He was told to step down. The bill was pushed through. The Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 did not strictly outlaw the plant in its text. Instead, it placed such severe punitive taxes, complex regulations, and threat of federal imprisonment on its cultivation that the entire agricultural industry collapsed practically overnight. The decorticator machines went silent. The fields were violently plowed under. In a single legislative stroke, an ancient, sustainable resource was legally eradicated, leaving a massive, artificially created vacuum in the market. The synthetic takeover was absolute. DuPont's nylon quickly replaced hemp in textiles, industrial ropes, and eventually the very parachutes used by American soldiers in the Second World War. Hearst's timber mills ground millions of acres of irreplaceable old-growth forests into chemically bleached paper. The age of artificial scarcity had officially begun. The government's true understanding of the plant was briefly and hypocritically revealed just a few years later. During World War II, when the Japanese cut off the United States' supply of abaca fiber from the Philippines, the military faced a critical shortage of rigging and canvas. The government panicked. In 1942, they secretly released a promotional film titled Hemp for Victory, effectively reversing the ban for the duration of the war. They quietly begged Midwestern farmers to plant hundreds of thousands of acres of the very crop they had just demonized, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that they always knew its true strategic value. But the moment the war ended, the film was buried. The fields were torched, and the ban was violently reinstated. For decades, the government even denied the Hemp for Victory film had ever existed, until activists physically unearthed copies from the Library of Congress archives in the 1980s. We are currently living in the dystopia they designed in 1937. We live in a world suffocating under the crushing weight of its own synthetic convenience. We drill deep into the ocean floor to extract petroleum, refining it into toxic plastics that will choke our marine ecosystems for 10,000 years. We systematically clear-cut the vital lungs of our planet, turning ancient living forests into temporary cardboard shipping boxes and disposable paper cups. We have bought into the manufactured lie that these highly toxic finite processes are the only mathematical way to sustain modern civilization. Yet, the ultimate, beautiful irony of this century-long corporate conspiracy is that nature fiercely refuses to be legislated out of existence. Drive down a rural highway in the American Midwest. Look out past the meticulously fertilized, chemically saturated rows of genetically engineered corn, and look down into the drainage ditches. There, growing wildly in the neglected toxic soil along the side of the road, you will find the remnants of a stolen empire. They call it ditchweed. It is the feral, untamed descendant of the industrial hemp planted by patriotic farmers decades ago. It grows without corporate permission. It survives without toxic chemical fertilizers. It quietly pulls heavy metals from the polluted runoff of modern agriculture, dutifully repairing the earth while we speed past, looking the other way. The greatest trick the chemical and timber monopolies ever pulled was convincing humanity that we need them. They forced us into a desperate state of dependency, selling us expensive, poisonous, synthetic imitations of a resource that the earth desperately wants to give us for absolutely free. The history of this plant is a stark, undeniable testament to the fact that our scarcity is entirely artificial. Our world is not running out of resources. Our world has simply been hijacked by those who profit immensely from restricting them. The solution to our global plastics crisis, our rampant deforestation crisis, and our catastrophic soil degradation is not a new synthetic patent waiting to be invented in a laboratory. The solution has been here since the dawn of human civilization. It is stronger than Kevlar. It heals the earth, and it is waiting patiently to be reclaimed.